Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Imperial Guard. My name is Commissar Steel, here on Steelstriker's channel, and I am here to correct something. You see, as in my time, being a Commissar and being a part of the Imperial Guard, I have come to realize many of you do not, well, appreciate the Infantryman's Handbook, or the uplifting primer at his nose. And well, I am here to rectify that. Why? Because I know what you think. Oh, it's the uplifting toilet paper. It has no real information in it that is useful. There's nothing that can be learned from this book. Well, I say otherwise. So, oh, as we read it, I am going to read it to you. Why? Well, I know many of you would probably be better off doing something more worth your time. So, if you are getting ready for bed, keep your helmets by your bedside, las guns under your pillows, make sure your whatever you have for a blanket is up to your chest, and let us begin. The first page. Very important information here. You there, soldier. Do you know a las cutter from a las cannon? Not sure which prayer to the God Emperor will protect you from enemy artillery fire? Need to know how to survive an explosive decompression on your dropship, or set up a crossfire ambush in a Death World jungle? Better consult the Handbook. The Munitorum Adepts give us these things for a reason, you know. Oh, there is a warning here, however. All troopers are hereby ordered to replace their copies of the Imperial Munitorum Manual, Imperial Infantryman's Uplifting Primer, with this combined edition under Imperial Ordinance IG/INF/237-12 Omega. Failure to comply will lead to summary execution by commissariat officials. You have been warned. So, if you must take anything from the first page, get your Imperial Munitorum manuals updated. I don't want to have to find out how you heard this and didn't update it. Oh well. Page 2. Imperial Munitorum Manual. Warning, and this is an even bigger warning. This document must not fall into enemy hands. Failure to ensure this document's safekeeping carries the penalty of death. Failure to produce this document at a superior officer's request at any time carries the penalty of death by order of the Departa Munitorum. Now, I feel like this needs explaining. I, myself, when I was just a junior commissar, asked my senior, a great man known as Commissar Mikel, I asked him, why is it needed? Mikel, in his gruff voice, always said, the reason it is necessary is because it is a test. A good soldier will not just follow orders, but will always keep to routine. For routine is something to keep the mind away from boredom, and boredom is the fastest way to heresy and corruption. I believe that, honestly. So, make sure to keep your Munitorum manuals on you. You never know when and someone will ask you for it. Now, The Imperium Uniform Manual Cadian Edition has been written, prepared, and produced by order of the Chancellor of the Estate Imperium in conjunction with Lord General Militant of our Emperor's glorious Imperial Guard. The requisition forms have been prepared and produced by the most vaunted Ordo of the Departo Munitorum. Forgive me if you hear Depart Ordo instead of Departamento Munitorum. On in the schola that I was a part of, we were taught to get words out quickly. Most people will hear what they want to hear. This is a newer edition, revised and first published in the year of our Emperor 945, millennia 41, printed by the Emperor's own press on Ultima Libris. Now, the author of this is by esteemed young man Graham McNeil. Illustrations in this book are done by Alex Boyd, Wayne England, Neil Hodgson, Carl Kopnitzky, and Tiernan Trevelyan. Publication done by the Black Library. Prefaced by Seward Rosencrantz, Chancellor of the Estate Imperium. The soldiers of the Imperial Guard are the bulwark of our beloved Imperium, without whose glorious labors in service to the divine Emperor of mankind, the galaxy would fall to the depredations of countless alien races and the myriad of foes of humanity. The institution of this galaxy-spanning organization is what has allowed the Emperor's people to conquer the very stars, as in quest of mankind's manifest destiny to rule the heavens. The courage, vigor, and loyalty of the Imperial Guard cannot be doubted, but without the infrastructure of an organization mightier still, it would be naught but a collection of spear-waving savages, unable to do more than rampage across their homeworld like the barbarian tribes of old Earth. This mighty organization in the Departamento Munitorum, and without its Herculean labors, the galaxy would soon fall to anarchy and the destruction of our way of life. It is to this organization that this book is dedicated, and to which the information contained within it is most relevant. It has been put together by the most dedicated clerks and officers of the Departamento Munitorum for the benefit of all soldiers within the Imperial Guard, from the lowliest guardsman to the most senior Lord Militant. For the information contained in this book should be understood and appreciated by all within the Imperium. Thusly why I am reading it to you, so that you can understand it. Only those who truly understand the panoply of regulations, bylaws, subsections, and full requisitioning procedures can properly appreciate the mighty labors that ensure the armies of the Imperium are able to take the illumination of the Emperor to the far corners of the galaxy. Though history often tells of heroics of the bloodied soldier striding through storms of gunfire, or the stalwart general leading his troops from the front with a gleaming blade held high, few tell of the equally heroic logistical officers or supply clerks who ensure that a bloodied soldier has sufficient power packs for his lasgun, or the general has the correct sword appropriate for his rank. Such men are at least as important, if not more so, to the continued procession of victories enjoyed by the soldiers of the Imperial Guard. Thus, I commend this book to the care and diligence of every warrior of the Emperor, in expectation that a fuller understanding of how the Imperial Guard is raised, supplies, maintained, and dispatched to war will result in a greater majesty and power in his armies. The Emperor is our sword and shield, and under his aegis may you smite his enemies. Signed, Seward Rosencrantz, Chancellor of the Estate Imperium. As prefaces goes, that has to be one of the more detail-oriented and inspiring. On the next page after it comes the logistical officer's chain of command to be completed on receipt of Form OFH 4439B3 Red and returned to Departmental Munitorum Administration on Terra. To anyone who does not have it, I am going to show you my copy. It will be your name, your birth sex, regiment, serial number, rank, grade, height, weight, distinguishing marks, age, your place of birth and date, current posting, company number, supply chain number, logistical commander's name, battalion supply clerk's name, company distribution officer's name. Now, some of these you may need help getting, but do not be afraid to ask your fellow guardsmen for it, such as the platoon supply liaison's name, squad kit requisitioner's name, supply commissar's name, logistical priest's name, notable supply expectations, items supplied, items returned intact, commendations, logistical awards, Munitorum citations, items taken, paperwork completed. That one can usually get you an award. Little known fact there. Personal commendations, logistical superiors' comments, and Imperial Guard commanders' comments. Now those you won't normally see, unless you've done some interesting things. Also good to note, service record, to be completed by Departmental Munitorum's acquisition supervisor. And there you have a little section to key for your theaters of war. Now, this is another little test they include in it. Do not write in this space, as you should not. These are the contents of the book. I will not read them all for you here, but for tonight, if I can, I will read to you the first part. Thusly, let us begin. Part the first. The glorious history of the Departamento Munitorum. Section 1. The duties and honor of the Departamento Munitorum. How can a man be happy if he does not serve his Lord with his whole heart? Litany of the Adepts. We begin. Since the early years of the 31st millennium, the Departamento Munitorum has provided the strategic command for the Imperial Guard. The long and glorious history of the Departamento Munitorum can be traced back almost 10,000 years, to a time when the structure of the Imperium was very different to what we know today. In the earliest days of the Great Crusade, when times were simpler, all that was required for the fighting forces of the Imperium was conquest. Expeditionary fleets would set out from Terra and take flight to the alien races that sought to feast on the vulnerable empire of humanity in the wake of the Age of Strife. The Emperor, beloved by all, set out to expunge the Xeno from the galaxy and render it unto a realm fit for humanity to inherit. These expectations only carried with them the means to fulfill a portion of their supply needs, but simply took what they needed from the worlds they conquered in their travels. Upon the compliance of a world, the expeditionary fleet would move on, leaving the assimilation of the planet into the imperial fold of fleets of pioneers and colonists. Each would, in time, become a fully integrated world, capable of supporting itself and growing the number of expeditionary fleets. Such a state of affairs could not continue, for eventually each fleet would exhaust its supplies and be too far from a compliant planet capable of resupply. In these times, the resources of a campaign were organized by the commanding officer of the expeditionary fleet, a necessity of the times, but one that was wholly unsuited to the growing size and complexity of the Imperium. Ofttimes a commander would be expected to be a war leader, diplomat, executor, medicator, and logistician. Lo- logistician. There's the word. Such men who could accomplish all these feats and still have time for the strategic demands of a long campaign were few and far between. And as such, the newly formed Council of Terra began recruiting those whose minds could function in such a manner, empowering these administrators with the duty of maintaining the Emperor's armies in perpetuity. This was the earliest incarnation of the Departamento Munitorum. Think about that for a moment. One person, or maybe a few people, who were leading the Great Crusades expeditionary fleets would be the only ones chosen for the job. And we're not just talking about the Primarchs. No, we're talking about the common human. So you truly see the pressure that they were on, and thus the need for the Departamento Munitorum. Let us continue. These first heroes of the Departamento Munitorum came from every rank and station, with the expeditionary fleets and the adepts of Terra, sober men and women of suitable temperament, and for such grave responsibility. Given unto them was the task of ensuring that the Imperial Army, as the Guard was known then, need for munitions supply, recruitment, training, and transportation was met. The records of these times are fragmentary as to the exact dates and reasons for the change of the name from Army to Guard, a fact that continues to irritate the pedants amongst the archivists despite its insolubility, as this was an age of warriors and heroes, not bookkeepers. Oh, if only humanity, you would keep more records, keep more books, and make sure that they could not be destroyed. The technology and the knowledge we would have. But I'm rambling. Back to the book. Whatever the reason, the earliest pioneers in organizing a unified supply and recruitment structure had many almost insurmountable obstacles to overcome, not least of which was the reluctance of each expedition to relinquish control of such things to the others more qualified to administer them. While the Imperium was expanding from Terra, and the scale of the conquered space was, relatively speaking, manageable, such resistance to change was perhaps understandable, if short-sighted. Battle groups moved quickly and could react swiftly to evolving circumstances, but as times changed and the demands of constantly changing battlefield required greater and greater ingenuity on the part of the Imperial war machine, Soldiers would go into battle equipped with a multitude of different weapons, ammunition, stocks, armor, and training. The very successes of the earliest expeditions were to sound the death knell for such objections, for soon the Imperium became so large that such objections became unattainable. Even the most intransigent commanders soon realized this state of affairs could not continue, and central control of the imperial forces, Guard, was given to the Departamento Munitorum. Begrudgingly so, if I may put my point. From this point onwards, every Imperial Guard regiment would look to the Departamento Munitorum to raise, supply, train, and dispatch it. In recognition of the great importance of this work, no less than 3 seats amongst the Hilos of Terra were given to the most senior officers of the Departamento Munitorum: the Lord Commander Militant of the Imperial Guard, the Lord Commander of the Estate Imperium, and the Master of the Administratum. For a time, the Central Command was organized from Terra, but as the demands of the galaxy-spanning empire grew more strident, it soon became clear that control of all aspects of the Guard from one central point was virtually impossible. Given the vagaries of the warp communication and travel, it is difficult enough to ensure that far-flung worlds remain loyal to the Emperor, so controlling the day-to-day activities of these planets is a hopeless task. Because of this, the building blocks of the Imperial Guard are firmly based on the military forces on the individual worlds. The Ministorum governs some Imperial worlds, whilst others are ruled by the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Of these worlds we shall not trouble ourselves, for their methods of accounting and logistical mechanics are arcane and Byzantine. Such worlds are in the minority, and thus the majority of Imperial worlds must look to the Departamento Munitorum for their defense and safety. The garrison worlds of the Imperial Guard and those under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Commanders are where we shall confine our researches and revelations in this publication. In the following sections, you will look at how the Departamento Munitorum is organized at sector and subsector level, and the process by which the raising of an Imperial Guard regiment is decided. By using the example of the Cadian 91st, we shall outline the methods by which a regiment is raised and supplied, its structures, the organizational procedures that allow it to wage war and conduct and the conduct required of its officers while dealing with agents of the Departamento Munitorum. To sum up everything that I have just read there, in essence, the Munitorum is trying again to state its importance and then give you a reason as to why it doesn't control everything. But thusly, it will be using the Cadian 91st as examples for the way it works on various galactic levels. Section 2. Hierarchy and structure of the Departamento Munitorum. There is no right and wrong in our profession. The present changes the past from moment to moment. Only pray for the future to vindicate your actions. Litany of the Adepts, Canticle of the Administrator. As we have already seen, the central control of the forces of the Imperium is next to impossible from one central location, a fact the blessed Emperor really realized almost immediately upon embarking upon the Great Crusade. One of his earliest edicts of the time was an was that an imperial governor, or imperial commander, as they were often known, be appointed to administer each compliant world. Such positions were often awarded to commanders who had performed well in the field, a practice that was not always successful, for great soldiers do not necessarily make good administrators in times of peace. In an effort to ease the dependence of each world on the Imperium, the majority of such appointees are scions of powerful local nobility with their own power base and means to maintain control. All are, of course, subject to approval by the Adeptus Terra, and thus they are more suited to the role of administrators. Though such men and women are described as quote-unquote administrators, it should not be forgotten that they are also expected to be warriors, for each is responsible for the defense of their world. This last responsibility is essential to the unreliability of warp travel. Oh, no, I misread that. I'm sorry. Let me adjust my spectacles here. This last responsibility is essential, as the unreliability of warp travel means that local defenses must bear the initial brunt of an enemy attack until aid can be dispatched. These local forces are generally codified as the Planetary Defense Forces, or the PDF, and must be maintained at a level of readiness where they can withstand the attack of even a very powerful enemy force until the reinforcements can arrive. However, this promise of reinforcements comes at the price known as a tithe. Yes, Servitor, I know that you're low on battery. Go charge yourself. Forgive my servitor if you hear him beep every now and again. And back to the book. It is the Departmental Munitorum's task to collect a tithe from every world in the Imperium, and it is the duty of every Imperial commander to provide it in a timely fashion. This tithe can be taken in the form of men or material, depending on the planet in question. The methods of assessment are fair and just, though they require the willing service of thousands of scribes and accounting servitors to judge the wealth of an entire world. Many factors must be taken into account, including the wealth and resources of the world, as well as the likelihood of attack in the foreseeable future. When a tithe is taken in men under arms, soldiers will be recruited in much the same way as they are for the PDF, and sometimes entire regiments will be raised from the ranks of the PDF itself. In addition to the regular tithes, Departmental Munitorum can also demand that the Imperial commander raise regiments to meet a specific threat or answer a call for aid from a neighboring system or planet. To organize such mighty labors, the Departmental Munitorum is organized at the sector and subsector level. Each level of organization has enough autonomy to respond to a local problem, normally acting to support Imperial regiments from worlds close to a crisis point in an increasing radius as required. The level of response will escalate to meet the level of threat. Should the PDF of a world prove inadequate to repel invaders, then the subsector command of the Departmental Munitorum will deploy its standing Imperial Guard regiments to augment and or avenge these local forces. If more forces are needed, then the subsector command will raise additional troops, initially from nearby worlds and then from other more distant worlds in the subsector. As the commitment of troops grows, sector commands of the Departmental Munitorum will become more involved, and reinforcements will be drawn from more and more worlds. The effect forgive me, the person who wrote this has wrote this sentence very weird. The effect is that The harder an enemy strikes the Imperium, the greater the response will be. Though individual regiments are normally commanded by their own officers, usually drawn from the nobility of their homeworld, this is not always practical when dozens of regiments are mustered. In such cases, a higher level of command is provided by the general staff of the Departmentum Unitorum. This staff is generally formed from the best of the officers in the tithed regiments, recommended by their previous service, or their family's connections in some cases, and they receive additional training to prepare them for the greater role in commanding armies. Personal note here. The amount of times I have had to execute a commanding officer for being incompetent at their job is staggering. If something must be learned or changed from this book, or added to make it better, is that nepotism is never the way to go. Always give command to someone who has a record of being good at their job, and has a smart enough brain to do so. Let Ibram Gaunt be a good example of this. We continue. At the highest levels of command, these men will be known as Lord General Militant or Lord Commander Militant. However, there are many other titles in regular use, though this is rarely a problem, as such high appointments are singular in nature, and only one Lord General will active in a sector at any time. In some, thankfully, rare occasions, the crisis will be such magnitude that a higher rank will be required. This is the rank of War Master. Such a grand title is reserved for only the mightiest crusades, and even the Departmentum Unitorum is forbidden from bestowing such a title upon a soldier without the express permissions of the High Lords of Terra. Such mighty individuals wield a power second only to the Emperor, and not lightly does the Departmentum Unitorum request such an appointment, for the position carries with it a carte blanche to do what must be done. Due to the unrivaled power of this office, there is only ever one War Master at a time, and though the honor of such title is beyond measure, there are still those who question its relevance in the Imperium of today, given past legendary associations of betrayal that cling to it. Perhaps because of this, some individuals accorded this great honor have chosen to use the synonymous title of Lord Solar. And with that, we finish the first part. There is a very nice picture of the structural nature of the Departmentum Unitorum. I could go into that more, but it is getting late, and I have troops to lead tomorrow. So, I am Commissar Steel for Steelstriker. Thank you, Guardsmen, and for listening, and may the Emperor protect you as you sleep. Good night.